right, legends. If you guys can see us, let me see if I can activate the brighter light here. Yeah, there we go. Time to roll. We're rolling.
Yeah, it's 6:42. The sun's still not up yet because of the time change to standard time.
You barely see us.
It's perfect.
So we're rolling towards the corner.
Some idiot.
The roads are dry
What happened? Someone running
in our area.
I don't know. I just saw the tire marks one day.
So Paul's asking about a couple of tire tracks that are in my neighbor's
understand
yard.
what
Somebody
you could be
drove
doing
on the
that
lawn.
corner to drive
You know,
into
some
somebody's yard
genius.
like that.
But anyway, on this ride, Paul and I left Northampton. It was a misty morning. It had rained the day before, but when we left, the roads were dry in our area. By the time we got to the woodlands and picked up Team RR, the roads were very damp because of the mist. We went down Fishcreek, a lot of action. We filmed the entire stretch until we got out to Keenan on 2854. We rode away from the group because they stopped on a corner. We went past Taco Corner, went into the forest. We did not film that part of the forest. Once we got out to 1791, we came down 149, took Hidden Forest Road back to 1097. We went past Montgomery High School and got on Spring Branch Road. We started the camera there. We had some issues with the camera, but we got it working. You know, the weather affects electronics. And once we got back into Keenan, we wrapped up the ride. I think we got a total in excess of a little over 7 hours. So we were able to do our regular amount of time, even with the challenges of the weather. We did not have our mud guards because there was no forecast of rain. We hope you enjoy the clips.
Come on. Let's go. So we thought we were giving up on it. No way. No.
I'm laughing because when we got there, these guys were still standing, so we did a little extra loop.
Hey, Bob was messing with the software. That's why I kicked him out.
Bob fragile.
He said to put Bob in archive. They filed him away.
It was a software glitch.
We're talking about the GroupMe chat
Wait, see what
software.
happened, Dan? Depending on what you're using, depending on what you're using, the button, there is a choice for clear the messenger,
clear.
and it's right next to leave the group. So if you fat finger it, those two choices are together.
You were on that ride when we were talking about it, right? It was a little bit chilly, and there was some back and forth about whether to go. And blah, blah.
So what happened is, if you go and if the first choice is clear chat messages, second choice is leave the group. If you tap leave the group, it kicks you out. So I think that's what he did.
Okay.
And you have to go back and archive.
What's funny about that? That small misunderstanding, the conversation it created, all that.
So what we're talking about is there is a software they use to let everybody know what's going on with the rides called GroupMe.
I know, somebody gets their feelings hurt.
And so the week before Bob got kicked out of the group, he admits in a little while you'll hear him where the choices of clearing the messages is right next to leaving the group, and he pushed leave the group inadvertently. It prompts you, it asks you, are you sure? And I think it asked you for either choice, and he thought he was just clearing messages.
It was just supposed to be cloudy.
Right.
See, look at the roads.
I just looked at it and it said 94% humidity.
Yeah, we have a lot of humidity because of the rains this week, but this road was supposed to be dry. At our home when we left, it was
Once you
dry.
get out there, it's always cooler.
So that's why we don't have mud guards on, so we end up getting all messed up, messy. It was a messier ride. It didn't rain. It must have rained here maybe in the wee hours. And then all we have now is fog and mist.
You gotta be careful in the turns, the white line.
So Dan is saying that we just need to make sure everybody stays upright, because these are the kind of days where if you get a little careless, you can slip and fall easily.
Negative factor.
So days like these, I use a slightly lower air pressure because it's kind of damp. But I expected it to be dry. That's why you see I don't have mud guards on.
Big turnout this morning, my friend.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of people showed up.
How many miles do you guys ride on the way in? 9, did you tell me one time?
Sometimes we do 10 and 12, something like that.
When you loop around like we did that one morning?
That's a little more than that. Yeah, we looped there. Today we didn't loop, so it's about 10.
So Dan's asking how many miles we cover on the way. So we ride about 16 kilometers usually if we go directly to them. But it always varies depending on when we leave. So Bob's telling us, he's admitting now that he did push that message inadvertently, and it prompts you, are you sure? But it does it for either choice, whether you're clearing messages or leaving the group. And he had to go do some research online to find out how to get back and rejoin the group. Because it kind of lets you know what the guys are doing by keeping up with the chat messages. I wore orange today because look at the day. It's cloudy. You can see I've got my bright orange shoes on. I've got an orange jersey. That was my reason for wearing very bright colors in addition to the lighting. So you're very visible. But it ended up just being messy. I mean, jerseys got dirty on the back a bit, you know. But, that was all taken care of. As soon as I got back, I washed it right away. I don't let the dirt set in. That's what you want to do. If you ride and you get caught in the rain, clean your kit as soon as you get home. Throw it in the machine, whatever. I washed mine by hand to make sure I would get all the spotted, dirty water because it puts spots on your jersey. I wanted to make sure I hit everything correctly. You will hear Paul Ilonga in a little bit tell me that, man, I miss not having my mud guards. Well, this was not forecasted. It was supposed to be dry and overcast. And it must have just rained in this area shortly before we got there because it never rained on us. In a little bit, I'm going to put an arrow on the rider that comes through the intersection up ahead, right there. Now, the reason why that's significant is this guy turns in front of us. Part of the group is already going through the yellow light. So you see me point. We're going through. It's safe because it's better than trying to stop at the last minute. The reason I flagged that rider, I want you to keep your eye on the fact that he stays in front of us about a couple of car lengths because, we're just riding here. And these guys end up chasing him for about 6 or 7 kilometers, probably close to 10 kilometers when we get on Fishcreek. And almost at the point where we catch him, I go ahead and pull out of the line. And it's a bit away from here, but you would see that. I'm setting that up so you're aware of it. I guess they use him as a rabbit. And so Mark is chasing and this and that. So our pace just stays higher than they normally do, and of course our group breaks up all over the place. So you'll see that develop. That's why I pointed that out. Right now as we ride, you see the road is damp. These are the kind of surfaces that just get you dirty. These surfaces just mix with the grit on the road and your tires pick them up. So we were not expecting it. I would have loved to have had my mud guards on. It would have minimized cleanup. But the cool thing is I didn't get a lot of grit under my saddle because it's a hassle. And what we do when we get back, we just run the water hose over the bike. So it's real quick. You get all that grit off the bike before you go and do your fine detailing if you want to do that. So it was no biggie. My training has been a little inconsistent because of the time of year, and I've been busy with other things. So I've been riding in kind of a more spotty fashion. And when you do that, it's kind of hard to know how your body's going to respond to changes in pace. And so on Fishcreek, as we approached the overpass, I felt a little discomfort in my left hamstring, so I ended up pulling out of the line, backing off from the pace just to let things kind of settle down a little bit. You got to listen to yourself all the time. Listen to your body. This is what we're talking about here. Paul was like, he hated not having his mud guards, but there's no way we would have known that these roads up here would be wet. When we left, our roads were dry, and the forecast said overcast, no rain. So what I'm telling him is don't roll through standing water, and hopefully you won't get too dirty. So you see where I'm riding, I'm looking for the driest patches to roll over. Ideally, it would have been best to have the mud guards on the bike. The bearings on my bike are, it's compatible with Campagnolo, but they're sealed bearings that keep water out. Some bearings are not sealed, so if you have bearings that are not sealed and you ride a lot in the rain, you have to service your bearing more frequently, your bottom bracket. But if your bottom bracket cups are sealed, then they don't need as much service. But just because it's sealed doesn't mean water may not get in. If you do a lot of rainy rides, you might want to check them quarterly or something like that, more frequently than you would normally do if you only rode in dry weather. So right here I will stand a little bit and I pick up a lot of grit. You see where I am? I'm avoiding the dirt in the middle of the road there, but still it's damp enough and wet enough to where it picks up. And Paul would tell me,
make sure you edit that.
we shared a private joke here about one of the riders Paul didn't identify.
They're not gonna know what the hell we're talking about.
So I told him, I said, they're not gonna know what we're talking about. It's like a private joke. But right there I stand and I pick up a lot of grit, and then Paul tells me, well, just that little stand that you did, you picked up a lot of grit on your jersey.
Did you hear Scott? He thought we were going to blow them off or kick them to the curb, something like that.
Yeah, I heard. No, we don't miss much. Just that standing.
Yeah, Scott thought that we were going to not ride with them because it saw us go in the opposite direction from where they were. But I told him that we were just spinning to keep our legs moving until about 7:34 thereabouts. We didn't want to stand in the parking lot for more than a few minutes.
I felt it even in my short below here.
So we're talking about the water getting
That's
on
when
us.
I mentioned I should have put a mud guard on.
So there was no way we would have known that these particular roads right here in the Woodlands would be wet.
Yeah.
So it happens. I would have preferred to have had my mud guards on. It's a more enjoyable ride, and definitely I would have covered my shoes. So my shoes got a little damp from the mist.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Look at Mark.
Mark is wearing white up there in front, and his jersey's already dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, these kind of days are the messiest ones because there's no rain, just the water left on the road from whatever rain came through overnight in this area. And we were just kind of faked out because our roads were dry at the house.
Yep. Yep.
So as we crossed 1488 here, and we're heading towards Fishcreek. With a group this size and on a messy day like this, Fishcreek is a better route. Wide boulevard, wide lane, as opposed to Honey Egypt with the graded corners. So I noticed Mary keeps looking behind. I'm not sure what she's looking behind.
When we started, it was dry. Or I would have put on my mud guards.
But we're talking about the surface and the fact that the weather forecast was so off. Because where we live, it did not rain overnight. So when we got up, I went outside. The roads were dry.
Anyway,
so that's why I didn't put on the mud guards. And it was supposed to be dry the whole day, which it is, but this area here must have gotten showers. You see right here, this pavement is not as bad, but the dampness is all you need to mix with dirt, sand, and so forth to just get you dirty. So as we warm up in a little while, you will hear me tell Mary to keep her eyes forward because she keeps looking back. And that concerns me because when you look back and you're following people closely, if they slow down, you're not looking, that's wheels can touch. So if you're going to be looking back, you got to either drift to the side or back off the person in front of you. And especially if you're riding and there is a fall or somebody has a crash or whatever, do not look back unless you're the very first person in the group. Because the time when you turn around to look back and the guy in front of you looks back, all of you looking back, before you know it, there'll be other crashes. I've seen that happen many times. So it's always best to go forward and do a complete U-turn to go see what happened if something happened in the group, than to look back unless you've made sure nothing's in front of you when you do look back. So watch as we turn here. Mary will keep looking back. I don't know if it's this corner or the next one. See, she looked back right there. And she would keep doing it. I'm wiping the grit off my pants. I can feel it. So by avoiding riding in pools of water, I was able to stay relatively clean. Now in this curve, I think she looks back again, and in the next corner, I will let her know, hey, keep your eye in front. Don't worry about us back here. See, she looks back again. I don't know what she's looking for. Then she looks back again.
Hey, don't worry about us behind here. Keep your eye on those wheels in front of you. I see you keep looking back and scaring me. Yeah, you're good. We can't harm you from back here, but those guys can take out your front wheels, so.
Yeah, she said she was keeping her eye on us and just making sure we weren't, in any danger, I guess, when the curves are coming and so forth. But you heard what I told her. I said, we can't harm you from back here. Keep your eyes on those guys in front of you. So some of those guys turned and there were cars coming. You see where Mary had to go? Mary had to get on the shoulder. I don't like that they do that. Don't do that. When you're in a group and you're in front, only get in the lane if everybody else can get in the lane. Otherwise, you all stop as a unit. And I've said that in other videos. And if they do that, make sure that you who's following, don't just follow them. Check traffic. Make sure it's safe for you to get out there. I'm waiting for Paul. Paul gets closer. You can see they're up the road because we had to wait for those cars at the corner. So you've got to think about the people following you. Don't just go out into traffic because you can make it. If there's a car coming that will impair the rest of the followers in the group, then you need to go ahead and stop so that the group can stop. And then those of you who are following, if somebody does not stop, don't just roll out there. Go ahead and check. If it's not safe, you stop. So we're riding up to the front here. We'll go past. That's Mike over there. That's Lulu on the right there. I'm trying to avoid sitting water where possible. It just minimizes how much spray you develop. So a lot of times when it's damp like this, the drivers will definitely give you even more room. You see the water. You see, I don't know if you can see the little look like raindrops, but it's not actually rain. It's water off the guys in front of us. You didn't hear the conversation, but Mike S5 in the blue jersey that just rode past on the shoulder there had asked Paul whether we brought our underwater camera or something like that. I don't know if he was being funny, these action cameras are designed for adverse conditions. So it looks like there's a little bit of rain. I'm not really sure. I think it's coming off the wheels of the guys in front because we're staying back here to avoid it because it's not really raining. It had rained here as it's cleared because this road is completely wet. But actually that is rain. It's blowing. Whatever it was very light because I don't remember being bothered by the rain. But yeah, there's a little bit of drizzle there. At this point, we go ahead and pick up the pace to ride up to those guys because they're riding away. Mark is up there. The guy that I had pointed out at the light, he is up ahead. He's wearing a red jersey. I hope we can see him. But I think Mark is riding, trying to get up to him or something. But he's not riding with us per se. And so they were using him as a rabbit. We passed John here. That's Liz on the right there. So you can see now we're all scattered all over the road. There is no cohesion here. There is no group pace per se. And you know, when it's wet like this anyway, nobody really wants to be in the spray. So I'll go ahead and pick up the pace a bit here. That's Mark, Mike, and Tim up there. I am using the entire lane. I don't want to encourage anyone passing us in this lane. Start to descend, the speeds are going to pick up. So the faster you go in the wet, you want to keep your distance. Even when it's dry, when you're descending, leave a little more room between you and the riders you're following. So even when I ride up to these guys, I don't sit directly behind them because they would spray me in the face. So even though the draft is not perfect there, I don't really care. That's the reason we train, so you don't have to depend on the draft all the time. So I stay a little to the left here, out of the spray. So I might as well be riding solo because I'm not getting the benefit of any draft here. I'm at the top of zone 2. For me. The guy I pointed out is up ahead. We can't pick him up on the camera at this point, but we will see him in a little while. He's up there near the light probably. Yeah, we missed our mud guards on this ride, but you know, we went with the forecast. Can't get it right all the time. So there are riders coming from the right over there from that side street. He waits. One of them is in front of us on the right. We're going to pass that rider from that group in a little bit. And for some reason, every time these guys see another rider on the road, the impetus picks up, the pace changes. There's a rider from that group that was on the right. That one rider got through safely. The rest of them had to wait for our group as the light favored us. So right here, our pace has picked up. We go past this rider. This road is going up, and we're going into the wind. So we're working here. I'm right at sweet spot at this point. So Mike goes by Tim here, and we ride up to Mark. But once we get there, I soft pedal a bit. I stay to the left. Paul is on my left, filming. So because I ride in all kinds of weather, rain, shine, doesn't matter. I have bottom bracket cartridges that are sealed. That goes a long way into minimizing the amount of maintenance you need to do. Because once your bottom bracket gets grit in there, the performance really drops. And they can wear, basically, and then you have play in your drivetrain. So if you're riding down the road and your crank looks like every time you pedal, the chain ring is rubbing on the front derailleur cage, you may need to get your bottom bracket serviced. It may have too much play. And some of them can be serviced and rescued as opposed to being replaced, depending on the condition. And it's really pronounced when you stand. If you stand and you hear that grinding because you're standing and your chain ring has about 5 millimeters of play or more, that tells you something's up with your drivetrain. You need to get it checked out and serviced. They wear. Some more than others. If they're serviced meticulously, they don't wear as much. So people that ride in cyclocross or mountain biking, they have bottom brackets that are very heavily sealed. They give up a little bit of more friction for durability. So Mark pulls off, and then Mike S5 takes over, and the pace goes up. And this is what I talk about. Is like, I don't understand why when people take over, they change the pace. The problem is our group is scattered all over the road right now, like homeless people. That's the guy up there that you just saw, that I showed at that intersection in the Woodlands. He was killing himself to stay away from us. And watch, the light is red. He's gonna actually run that red light just to stay away from us. We weren't chasing him. I wasn't. I could have cared less. You can see he's going through the red light. It hasn't changed yet, but he's going through the light. So the light changes now. I take the lead, and I could care less about him. I look back earlier before I got to the intersection. You'll probably see me look back again because I'm looking back for the weakest link in the group. I look back to make sure to see what's going on with everybody there. You know, all those riders like Tim and Liz and John, other people we passed on Fishcreek earlier. So I dropped the effort here. Because if I figure if they don't like it, somebody can come back to the front. I dropped the effort so everybody can kind of regroup. I'd much rather do this than to stand on a street corner a kilometer up the road to say, let's regroup. I don't like that. Just, you know, at least this way we're moving. So I dropped the effort to where it's like back to the top of zone 2. This allowed the other people at the back to catch up. So you have to decide what you want to do in your group, and you can break up into multiple groups, and that's okay. So when I dropped the effort here, that guy poured it on. See him up the road there? I don't know if he thought we were chasing him or not, but I had no interest in him. I mean, he's not riding with us. Paul and I were doing 7 hours. This is about maybe 22 minutes into this ride. We've already gotten an hour before we got to these guys. So we've got bigger fish to fry than to waste energy. So yeah, it looks like we did have a lot of moisture in the air, of course, from the mist. And so on the camera, it looks like rain right now, but it's really not. It's like droplets. There was so much. It was like a 94% humidity day. If you notice, I dropped the pace to where we're doing about probably 17, 18 miles an hour as opposed to 23 that we're doing a little while ago. This allowed everybody to kind of regroup. starts to go up. You can see my watts go up.
Not going anywhere, Paul. Just hanging out over here. Keeping you and Eldred company.
So yeah, so Mark comes to the right. Every time the road goes up, he wants to work harder. I'm not sure why he comes to the front. You can do that from wherever you are. But he says he's just going to hang out on the right. I just keep doing what I was doing. So you see right there, he's backing off the pace. I'm not going faster. The road's going up, so my watts go up. Paul is on my right, and we're just maintaining what we're doing. We're approaching Ridge Lake Shores. We're up there at the light. The road goes up again. I keep my effort the same because my plan is to just keep things steady, reasonably hard, but not to break up the group. The road's going up. If you see my watts, they're going up. I use a high cadence effort here, and I'm at the bottom of zone 4. When we go through the intersection, the road's back up. I shift up. Then Mark says, come on in. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but come on in. But I'm at the front, so I'm just pulling. So I just keep riding. At this point, I don't sense any discomfort because of my training's been real spotty this week and the week before, or the last 3 weeks. So I just ride when I can. I've been busy with other stuff, and so I'm just keeping things steady like we normally do when Paul and I are riding. So Mark again goes to the front. The road's going up, so every time the road goes up, he attacks the hills. I'm looking to see where everybody is. Well, that takes a lot of effort. If I'm already up here, I'm holding a decent pace. For you to come past and go, you have to work pretty hard. So if you watch right here, we're going downhill. My watts dropping. I'm shifting up, keeping my cadence in the same range. And the road's going to go up again. Now, we've got an overpass coming. The overpass, the new one, what I've noticed is since they opened this side, it's not as steep as the old one. The old one had a higher grade. See, this road goes up. That's a good way you can do intervals. On your route, on the rollers, when the road goes up, you can hammer the climbs. And if you want, you can keep riding on the downhills. But I keep everything about the same. I try to keep the pace the same. I have to put more watts because it's going up. So I figured since he wants to be up there, I'll just let him sit up there. I'll follow him and sit on his wheel. So at this point, we can see this guy that I pointed out at Branch Crossing in the Woodlands. He's up there. He's wearing a red jersey. He's not that far ahead, and we had no interest in him, but it seemed like Mark was using him as a rabbit. So we're getting closer and closer to him. At this point where I'm riding, I'm not really paying any attention to him, but I'm trying to figure out why Mark is pushing the pace here, because by the time we get to the overpass, if we push here, when we get to the overpass, our group will be all over the road because we got different levels of fitness in this group. We've got some riders who have been off for a while that are just coming back into riding. You know, we got some people that are just not at our level. But that's Team RR. They just ride, you know. There's the guy right there. We can see him at this point. So now you're going to see in a little bit, Mark literally starts sprinting towards this guy. Watch, look at my effort. It went from nothing to like 2 something. And this road is going up. Watch. I stay in the same gear pretty much, and I just pedal faster when I need to. And so we start to go, I'm like, why is he sprinting? I mean, he's literally sprinting. I'm looking at him. And then my left leg started twinging a little bit. And I was like, I don't know. Let me just pull out. So I pull out right here to wave Paul up. Mark has already turned off the power. I mean, I'm watching him. I can see. That's why I pulled out. He's pretty much freewheeling, almost soft pedaling. He catches up to the guy. I guess that was his goal or whatever. But I pulled out to drop my effort because I started feeling like there was a twinge in on my left leg. I had swapped my cleats out on those shoes, replaced them, and I guess they just weren't lined up like I'm used to. Because my body's very sensitive to anything being off. So if you watch my watts, they're very low. I slip behind Paul right here. Paul is riding up to Mary. And I just stay in the back. And then I noticed Lula was back there. You can see Paul rides past Mary. You can't see me, but I end up giving Mary a push. I keep my cadence in the same range, but keep my effort relatively low. You can see I'm climbing like less than 200 watts right now. So I drop the effort to make sure I don't strain anything in my leg. Right now the effort's up because I'm probably in the middle of the climb. But this part of this thing is not as steep as we had before. So Paul Ilonga is riding up the marsh here. And I'm just sitting in the back. I help Mary up the overpass. That's Mike S5 riding up to Mark. So Mark is sitting on that guy's wheel. And it's the thing. I don't do that. I don't sit on people's wheels I don't know. You know, if I'm going to ride up to somebody I don't know, I'm going to either go past them or I'm going to sit further back and leave them, give them their space. So I guess he was using that guy as a rabbit back there. So you have to be careful how you use your energy. And you will see us do more of this when we get on mill route. You have to decide who you follow and when you follow. That's what I mean when I say everybody comes to a group ride with their own plan. I have a different mindset. If I pass somebody, I really pass them. I don't pass them to where they can get an easy wheel. If we're not riding together and I'm really doing an interval or something, I go by at speed. And if the person really wants to get on my wheel, they're gonna have to work. So right now, I don't know what they're doing here. I'm sitting at the back. And if you look at my cadence, I'm just kind of pedaling along, keeping my eye on Mary. We're gonna turn in a little bit. I'm out of camera right now, sitting behind Paul. I'm probably about a car length back. The group is not together. We're about a car length apart. The group is scattered. You know, Liz is off to one side, Mary's off to one side. You will see them regroup. So I stay out of camera for a bit here. I sit in the back and I just watch to see what they're doing. Now watch. This guy stops.
Don't slow down, man.
You know, so Paul said, don't slow down. There was a car coming. There was a car coming from the right. So Paul did not want to slow down. You see, Mark stopped on the left over there.
Watch out.
And this is what I'm talking about. Instead of doing all these stops, why not just back off the pace so people can catch up to you? Why come to a complete stop? You can soft pedal or do whatever. That's the way I learned. That's the way I was taught. Keep the pace reasonable or just soft pedal till they catch up instead of stopping on the side of the road like that. And you saw Mike S5 was about to stop at that corner but there was a car coming. So Paul Ilunga said, don't slow down, man, because that would have been the worst place to stop, at the corner with a car coming the opposite way. They needed to make that turn. We're all on this road now. We're just back there.
It's a beautiful day. Yep.
I think this is the guy that they called up to. Yeah, he's having a conversation with Paul, and Paul, is like, I don't know what that was about. But anyway, he had been killing himself in front of the group and kept looking back like we're chasing him. So Bob's up here with Paul and the guy here. This guy turns left up the road there. That's another reason you don't chase people. You don't know their route. You don't know their plan. So at this point, I'm probably about 3 or 4 riders behind Paul, because Mark sat there on that corner to wait for Mary and Liz as I went by. I just sit back there to see what they're doing. You can see right now I'm not even pedaling. I'm coming down the hill at 42 kilometers an hour. I'm not pedaling, because Mark is still back there waiting for Liz and them. In a little while he will come by. So Bob's leading Paul here as they ride.
Keep going.
I'm not sure why he was stopping. Paul said keep going. Paul said car back, keep going. So the thing I wanted to point out is that Mark did that little sprint to catch that guy. That was his thing, but that affected his group. So when you're riding in a group, to keep the group together, that's Dan the man going for that little corner there up the hill. But if you're riding with your group and you want to keep your group together, then you can't be using the group for intervals necessarily, especially if you got weaker riders. If you do, once you're done with your interval, I'll let them know I'm going to just go hard here. Let them stay together back there holding their pace, and then you can slow down and rejoin the group and sit at the front and pull. When we come out here, I don't like unclipping much. So we prefer to just back off, soft pedal, get everybody together, keep riding. Keep the group moving, because then your average pace is higher as opposed to coming to 0 and stopping on a corner. Just keep that in mind as you put your group together or ride with your group. I think that's more efficient. So when Paul and I leave these guys, we don't do a lot of stopping. We may stop for a health break, but the whole time we're moving. So Paul turned the camera. I'm back there. Let me see where we are. So we're about a car length and a half behind them. This driver's backing out of the driveway. So you see Paul gave him a lot of room. That's what you want to do. Not only are you visible, but you give yourself a buffer. Just in case the driver doesn't see you, you've got a little bit of room to get out of the way. Oh, this is WCC boys. That's Jerry and them. Jesus. They come by.
Hey guys.
So now Bob sits in their line. He joins their group. In a little while, you will see us pick up Bob. In probably about 3 kilometers. So you see how this group is all over the road, whereas WCC boys are in a line working together. That's the difference. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey man, come back! Come back! Yeah. Lasso. Paul's doing an awesome job though.
Yeah, right.
Mark says, Mark's giving Paul Ilunga a compliment. Paul's like, yeah, right. Paul said, yeah, right, because we're not really riding here. I mean, look at the pace. 26 kilometers an hour. We're not really riding, per se. He said Paul's doing an awesome job. I mean, that's what Paul said, yeah, right. That's Tim over there. That's Liz. So everybody is now back together because Mark stood on the corner to wait for them up there, and then they all rode back together while we were here kind of lounging around. So all of this really drops the average pace of the group when you do that. I'm on the right there.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I was just sitting there watching. I told Paul that my left leg was acting up. So that's why I was sitting on the back just taking it easy. I was giving my leg a chance to, adjust. I ended up stopping and adjusting my cleats. This lady here just shows up. She was with WCC. Now, what we noticed immediately was that she's all twitchy on her bike. She got dropped off of their pace, but she did not quit. I really liked seeing that. She was still trying. She thought this was that group, and then Liz tells her no, they're up ahead. You can see them. You can see their lights. Let's see if the camera will get them. But she's just twitching all over. She's a bit squirrely. They just went through that light. We can see them at this point. They're not that far ahead. Look at her. Look at her twitching. What is that all about? And so you hear Liz say, give the lady a chance to get through.
Let the lady through.
There you go. Because she's trying to ride up to those, but she's not going to catch them. But what she ends up doing, which is smart, is when we get up about maybe 3 kilometers off the road, we turn right. She goes straight because it's a little shorter if you go straight to 2854. So she's taking a shorter way. She will probably eventually meet back up with them at Taco Corner if they stop there.
Yeah.
Because they end up breaking up. That group never rarely stays together the whole way. Because, Jerry does a lot longer ride than the group does.
With those guys up there.
So she's trying to ride up to those guys, but she's basically keeping her pace high. So Paul just told me that Bob's up with those guys. I said, yeah, they'll drop him. And then we laugh. Because the thing is that those guys don't do what this group does. They don't go speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. Whatever they're doing, they're going to hold it. And if you're not used to that, if you're not used to riding for hours on end without brakes.
He stops right in the front. I said, don't stop.
Yeah, Paul is explaining what happened when we turned on Capitol Road, where I was talking about he and Mike S5 when he told Mike not to slow down. It was right at the corner there. It was kind of dangerous. Now, this is what these guys like to do. The road goes up, they kill themselves up the climb. You see Liz, she's like doing an interval. So now Paul Ilonga goes ahead and rides past them. So he's in front. I'm just sitting back watching this because at this point I have not adjusted my cleat yet. I did that when Paul and I, after we rode off camera, I readjusted my cleat and my leg felt better after that. But I hadn't planned on using those shoes. I had set up the cleats, but I really had not tested them. And because of the weather, I really wanted to wear those shoes because they were very, very visible for a day like this. But it was no big deal because when I moved the old cleats, I mark them, and maybe somehow they slipped while I was marking them. It was just slightly off, but I'm just real finicky, I can tell. So, no, Paul does not want to catch this lady. You can see how quickly he drew her in. He's not trying to catch her. He's holding his own pace. She's not going to catch those guys. If you watch her pedaling, it looks a little labored. Her upper body's rocking, so she's really digging, and that's fine. She's pushing herself, but if you dig that much to catch a group like that, by the time you catch them, you're wasted. But this will help her improve because it gives her the mental toughness. She's gonna go straight because it's shorter, because I think they turn right like we did here, so she obviously knows the area. We've seen her out here before. From what I saw, she just needs a little bit more bike handling because all that twitching is nervous energy when you're riding like that. So she's wasting a lot of energy trying to keep that bike stable. So Paul turned on Southpine here. I'm gonna come by it a little bit because I'm just look at my cadence. I just ride past right here.
Yep.
And we see Bob on the right. So those guys that he slipped in that group. I guess he didn't like their pace that much. So he pulled out. In a few kilometers when we were about to leave the group, you'll see Bob go around us again, and we just ignore him. We're doing our own thing because it's almost like they're just doing whatever, and it's kind of like, I don't ride like that. I have a plan. You know, if we decide to ride with WCC, that's our plan. That day we'll ride with them. But to just pick up a group to come by, unless you're gonna hold that pace, there's no point to that. Plus, this month for us, we're building, and so starting next week, we'll start ramping things up. So as I went by Bob, I just kept my pace. He slipped behind Paul, I think. I told Paul, I said my legs are ready to ride.
Riding the back of my hamstring is seizing up.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens. That's when I let the group go, man.
Backed off enough.
Yeah, I told Paul that my hamstring was acting weird, so I just backed off enough to where it settled down.
Fell off that climb as much as I could.
Yeah. I know you were making the adjustments.
Yeah, it's just. Early in the season. If I had stayed with the effort, I would have had to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was telling him is, had I stayed with the effort when Mark was sprinting towards that guy, I would have had to stop. And the thing was, I could tell that he was only sprinting for a few yards. I mean, he was going way harder than I knew he could sustain. And I was like, I'm not going to expend energy unnecessarily here. And so what I was explaining to Paul is, you have to listen to yourself and decide, okay, do I want to keep doing this or do I want to back off a bit? And so by backing off a bit, I was able to stay in the groove, ride comfortably, ride up the hill, and then my legs kind of loosened up and everything felt better. The road's wet and damp. So you see I keep that bike upright and take a nice wide arch. You still can carry some speed, but you got to have a cleaner line. So I look for Paul. Once he gets back in the draft, we just resume riding. This is Mill Route. So later in the season, we'll join the WCC boards on some rides and we'll sit in, and so we'll do some filming. But right now, what we want to do is build a solid base and get back on our consistent training schedule before we start ramping it up.
Picking up a little bit, Paul. Business picking up a little bit.
Yeah.
Good.
Mark's asking Paul about, I guess, the airline business. Paul works one of the airlines.
Planes, friends, family.
Yeah, the usual.
Travel had been down with the COVID outbreak, so hopefully things will pick up. So all I do is I sit at the front and keep a reasonable pace. I'm right below sweet spot. That's why you can't do it by speed. It's got to be feel. So I'm right below sweet spot to where it's a decent effort, but nobody's killing themselves. This is like a pace where you're building. It's a moderate pace. You'll see the watts drop because the road got flatter here. Once we went around that corner, It was a little bit of a climb, and now he's going back. Now you see the entire group is together. So if anybody wants to go from this group, people have to decide, do I go with that person or do I just stay with the group or whatever. That's what you do. So in a little while, Mark will take off. We'll just let him go, and we just keep doing what we're doing. Those are the options. If you're feeling good and you're riding with a group, when somebody takes off, go with them. If you feel like playing, play. But make sure that you have enough left, and your backup plan should be, if this group were to continue doing this pace, would I be able to slip back in and stay in the line? That's the key. If you don't have much at this pace, then don't go. So when Mark takes off here, I just told Paul, I said, don't waste your energy because he's going to sit up anyway. So when somebody takes off like that, you have to decide, do I want to do that? If so, when the group catches up to us, when we back off, will I be able to hold the group pace? That's what should be your determining factor. Or, because you could use that as an interval workout and then slip back in to rest with the group. But you really should only do that if you're riding with a group whose pace is comfortable enough to where you can do more and stay with them. Otherwise, don't do that and get dropped. I did not go with him because it would just break up the group again, like it did on the highway back there. And since I'm sitting at the front, I'm working harder than somebody else who is not as fit that's sitting behind in the pace line. This way, everybody can ride together. That's one of the unique things about cycling. So those of you who are not in top shape, don't be afraid to ride with a group. Just find a group that has a steady tempo per se for the most part, and don't go with those accelerations. Stay with the main group and sit in. You will get fitter. You will work harder than if you're riding by yourself. So Liz takes off after Mark, and that's another example. Now, if you want to go with somebody like that's doing that, you can go, but the thing is, you gotta have to know, okay, is this somebody who is going to be able to sustain that, or are they going long, or are they only doing a 10-second effort, or whatever? You will see that shortly we will pull Liz back because she's only doing a short effort. So you got to know what people are doing before you chase them. So now Bob takes off after Liz. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that they're doing that, but we're holding a steady pace back here. We're probably doing like 17, 18. We're going to come and pass them on the highway because they decide to stop to zero on that corner. I think Mark does. And Paul and I keep going. So if the group were to continue going that you're riding with, then don't do stuff like that if you cannot go with the group. You can see Liz has turned off the power. She was hammering that hill. That was her plan. So if you want to hammer hills and she goes, then you go. But usually when I make those kind of efforts, I don't like to slow down. If I make an effort and hammer a climb, I want to rest at a higher pace because that pushes you even more. So both Bob and Mark stop at that corner, and I'm not really sure why. We just want to keep going. So I think he wanted to regroup. I think you will hear him say it. Right there. They're both on the corner.
That was fun.
All right.
So he said they're going to regroup. They'll see us at Taco Corner. Well, we didn't stop. We're going to keep riding. I want to keep going. We got 7 hours plus to do. We don't want to be standing on the corner. So they ended up hooking up with us after the light, but then we didn't stop at Taco Corner. We kept going. So right here, you'll see Bob go around again after standing on the corner, and we just continue doing our own thing.
Yeah, you see? Look, we got plenty of battery. So I don't understand why it went off. Nice filming. Okay, let's do it.
All right.
So what happened is we got to Spring Branch Road and the camera would not come on after we had turned it off. The weather got to it, so I got it sorted. We basically rebooted everything and it's working fine now, so we're about ready to go.
So the weather got to it.
So yeah, these electronics, they act up. That's one reason I don't depend on them. That's why I ride by feel primarily. That's just the way I learned. So you can see the pavement here is drier. Once we got into Montgomery, most of the roads were dry.
Yeah.
But the dampness from the mist and so forth remained. The sun tried to peek out. This is 5 hours into the ride. It's another reason why we hold a different effort when we're with Team RR, depending on what's going on. But today they really weren't going with any kind of sustained pace. They were doing a lot of 10-15 second efforts, like they were doing sprints or whatever they were. You know, there aren't too many top riders you're going to drop with a 10 or 15 second effort unless you're sprinting at the end of a race. So we're trying to build endurance here, so that's our focus.
Yeah.
I was showing Paul that they've been working on the side of the road, they're shoring it up with dirt to make sure it doesn't get washed away. In a little while he would see a piece of pavement where the heavy equipment had cracked the asphalt, you know. And he mentioned that because when they're trying to do this kind of work, sometimes, you know, the road suffers casualties depending on what they're using. Because those machines, the Caterpillar and whatever that they use, they're very heavy. So as you can see, 5 hours plus into the ride, we're riding the same kind of pace. So that's why I always say that you have to walk before you can run. So if we need to go fast, we can go fast for very long periods. Not 10 seconds, not 15 seconds. In fact, when I do a 10 or 15 second effort, we're talking maximal effort. That's enough to open a serious gap and then sit down and work. You know, so that's the kind of workout I like to focus on, as opposed to those little 10-15 second effort and you sit up. So just keep that in mind as you ride, depending on who you're riding with. Everybody's doing different things, and so you got to make sure that you're doing things that's going to work for you. And don't think that, oh, well, I'm going great because this other person didn't go, especially if it's an experienced rider, because a lot of experienced riders have their own plan. They know what to do and when. And when they decide to go, it's going to be really intense. Because my 10 or 15 second efforts, that's like triple digit watts. You know, like 4 digits. Like 1,000 watts or more. Yeah, that's 15 second effort. So Paul and I are rotating here. I roll through. I told her, I said my shoes feel like I'm wearing slippers. I got the cleat adjusted. Feels really good. My position is dialed to the point where if anything's off, I can tell immediately. I run the credits here before we go ahead and ride through this beautiful Spring Branch Road. I mean, I really love this road next to Honia, Egypt. It's one of my favorite roads out here. It's always very quiet. Doesn't matter when you come out here. It's a great road to get a good workout on. There's nothing behind us. I want to thank all our supporters and our channel members and patrons for making it possible for Veloharmony produce this content. So as the road changes, if you look at my watch, it says 0. The electronics was acting over. I couldn't figure out why. Once I noticed it, I mentioned that to Paul, then it started working. So I don't know what was going on. So it was one of those weird days. I think that's what I'm doing right there. It's pretty much, I turned it off and turned it back on. I don't know if it was the speed sensor or whatever. There you go. Now you see the wattage flipping around.
So my power meter is acting up. Oh. Yeah, it went to 0 and I coming back.
So I don't know if I had turned it off at one of our stops or something had happened because I don't touch it. And so all I did was push the power button and it's back on working fine. The electronics are very glitchy. So I like to use them in the background, not make them primary.
Look at that hill.
Yeah.
There's a hill in the distance and I think it curves.
Look at that, legends. Beautiful.
The camera does not do it justice.
Beautiful.
The wide angle, it does not show the verticality. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Once you get up to it, then you can't tell, but
Something
it's
heavy.
at least a 5%
Heavy
climb.
equipment.
Yeah, Paul's pointing out the broken pavement. Some heavy equipment rolled over it.
Look at that road. It's pretty. It wasn't supposed to be wet at all. It did not rain, but it was mist. That's how come our bikes are dirty. Just mist, and it rained yesterday. So we left off our mud guards thinking the roads would be dry because it was dry at our house.
So when we got back, we spent maybe a few minutes just hosing down the bike. You can see all
Once you get to
the,
it, you feel it more than anything.
you see the debris on Paul's bike here. I mean, he's got a white bike, so it shows everything. But what you want to do is just run a little bit of hose
3
in
hours on
shower
my legs to
mode
wake up.
gently and just wash the stuff off the bike. So then there's no grit
That means
if you
I
do
should've
decide to
ridden
wipe
yesterday,
down the
that's what it means.
tubes. It's
I
just
should've
better.
spun
So
a
we
little
just
bit.
did it outside the backyard. It took a few minutes. And the bikes were pristine and ready to go again.
That was a good transition there.
I'm pushing a big gear. You can hear me breathing. I got my cadence low and make my legs work harder. Go ahead and give Paul the camera here, and I roll to the front. Just keeping a respectable cadence, but I'm making my legs work. It's not a pure muscular endurance workout per se, because the cadence is up. The muscular endurance workouts require lower cadences than this. But it's a different style that kind of puts more load on your muscular system. I get in the drops. When your position is right, every position should feel good. So you should be able to get into the drops without your body position changing that much. And you should be able to go back to the hoods and your torso should stay relatively the same. You can see my speed has increased just by changing my position. The road has not changed much. It's a little slightly downhill here. So yeah, there's a little bit of a change here. They've added these little ridges here. I go over them just to see what it will feel like. And you'll hear Paul tell me in a little bit, you need to go to the middle or go between them. They put them on both sides of the road in either direction, in both directions. So I go between them. It's not that bad. They're just a little ribbed. It's like going over a washboard. And they put some on the left side to kind of let drivers know. Yeah, that's what Paul noticed. So to let the drivers know about to be aware and alert for that curve. I was telling him my bike feels so good. Those rib things did not bother me at all when I went over them. And that steel frame soaks up the vibrations nicely. So yeah, your fit is very critical to your cycling enjoyment. So a simple thing like your cleat being off can throw off how everything feels. And when you're fitted correctly, your cadence changes, don't change the way your body works. Everything stays the same, just your legs change. Their momentum. So I hope you got a chance to go out and get some K's in. If you didn't, get up, walk around, keep your body moving. Stay active. This is part of what we did on Saturday. Keep those doctors fired.